another free agent signing for the Vikings this last week. Robert Tonyan, former Packer and former Bear.
Yeah.
And wasn't he like a practice squad with the Lions? He's
Yeah.
kind of made a tour of the NFC North.
Yeah, he's one of very few people in the world to be able to say that he has signed contracts with all 4 NFC North teams. Yeah, he was a practice squad member with the Lions in 2017. I don't know how long he was with them, but obviously just never made the 53-man roster. But also in that same season, he signed on the 53-man roster with the Packers. Played a few years there. His best season was in 2020, the COVID year. He had 586 receiving yards, which for me, that's like the tight end version of 1,000 yards for me. Of course, you get the tight ends like a Kelsey. On good years, you get Hawkinson, where they will flirt with 1,000 yards, maybe even get a little bit more. But for like your regular good tight end, not your elite tight end, but your regular good tight end, 500 yards and a handful of touchdowns, that is the good year for them, in my eyes at least. So, yeah, 2020 he had 586 yards, 11 touchdowns with the bad guys. Played last year with the Bears, and now he might be Nick Muse's enemy right now. It might be one or the other for those guys to make the roster.
So you've got the tight end room listed out here.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got TJ Hawkinson, who is the proverbial starter when he's healthy.
Oh yeah, he is the second or third receiving option on the team, regardless of position.
Yep,
when healthy.
But he was quoted saying there's no timetable right now for his return, and I think it's been kind of widely stated that he might end up on the physically unable to perform list to start the season.
That kind of came out today in the last handful of days. That I think it was Ben Gessling pretty much said, yeah, he expects TJ to be on the PUP list, which that's like a mini IR to begin the season. That's an automatic 6 games or 6 weeks. I think that's an important designation, especially this year for the Vikings. But I think it's a 6-week mandatory, like you can't play. And of course, week 6 for the Vikings this year is their bye week. It's after the London game. So if that's true, and if we can also assume TJ is going to come back fully healthy after that, which of course we don't know yet if he will be on the PUP list, but let's just make it easy on ourselves and assume that. But if that's true, he'll be back week 7 against who is that against? Oh, against the Lions. I wasn't even trying to do a thing right there, but against his former team, and of course Joseph Kirby, whatever his name is, the guy that cheap shot injured him. So that could be an interesting storyline to follow early mid-season.
For sure. So he's obviously the number 1 tight end when he's back and when he's healthy. After that, you've got Oliver, Munt, and Muse, and then Tonyan. And then you've got a couple of... Were these guys unsigned? Trey Knox and Sammy's Reyes?
So I might be wrong on this. I think Trey Knox was a UDFA from just a few weeks ago, or from the draft. And then Sammy, however you say his name, I'm so sorry, Reyes, he's been in the league 1 or 2 years, but I don't know that he's ever made a roster. So those guys are probably, you're looking at practice squad, or if they can impress in the preseason and training camp, they might be a fringe guy to knock off probably Muse for a roster spot. But yeah, I think it's going to be, to start off the season, your tight end 1, you're looking at Oliver and then Mund and then either Muse or Tonyan if they keep 3.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I think a signing like that, especially with his NFC North reputation that precedes him, that's kind of a splash for the Vikings to pick up a guy like that.
A little bit. He kind of reminds me a little bit, because last week we talked about free agents that are out there that the Vikings could probably sign for a smart choice. And we talked about Hunter Renfrow, who had a decent season in 2021 as a wide receiver, but then he's kind of not really shown up ever since then. But he would still be kind of a flashy signing at this point in the year. Tonyan kind of to me, speaks a little bit to a tight end version of what a Renfrow signing could be. He had a flashy season in 2020 and hasn't really done much ever since, much to speak about, but obviously there's something there. So, yeah, it could be, a nice, interesting signing. He might catch a few touchdowns, or maybe this is the last time we ever talk about him. You never know. That's kind of where it is at this point.
For sure. So definitely an interesting acquisition for the Vikings, and could pay some big dividends, especially with Hawkinson out for the early part of the season. And, I think those four, Oliver, Munt, Muse, and Tunyon, are fighting for those roster spots for sure.
And honestly, even with Hawkinson out, like you just said, I think the tight end room is in a good spot. Like, obviously with Hawkinson, who you might get some pushback, but you could argue is in the upper echelon eliteness of tight ends in the NFL right now when healthy. But even without a Hawkinson, a room with Oliver, Munt, and then Muse or Tunyon is a good tight end room. Yeah. Like, that's one that you're not, you're just probably not getting a Pro Bowler out of there, but you're okay with that room heading into the season.
Yeah, for sure. And what's hard to quantify is like their blocking success. I know that there are some advanced stats out there, and we don't necessarily have access to those, so we don't pay those subscriptions to get the cool things.
Someday we'll get the big boy sponsors, and Big Top will still be around for us. But yeah, someday we'll get the big ones and be able to spend frivolously on those licenses. But
I think that will be an important feature of that tight end position is can they run block?
Yeah.
We need a rushing game desperately.
And importantly, to that point, Josh Oliver, that's what he's known for, is being one of the upper echelon blockers in the tight end realm. So I'm okay. I'm not freaking out about the tight end room yet. Even if Hawkinson were to miss 8 games, you don't like that because that's a good chunk of his prime NFL playing career. But yeah, it's almost like let him sit, let him be healthy. This room can patch it over until he gets back.
All right. Well, good beer, good show.
Best episode yet.
Skol.
Skol.
Hey Vikings fans, Evan here from the Skol Hop, and we just wanted to say thank you again so much for listening to the Skol Hop, and we also wanted to take one more opportunity to let you know that this episode of the Skol Hop has been brought to you by Big Top Ventures. If you're considering taking an all-inclusive trip to either Mexico or Jamaica, reach out to our friends at Big Top Ventures at bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. Once again, that's bigtopventuresllc@gmail.com. You can get the lowest rate possible on several all-inclusive resorts throughout the region. Big Top Ventures. Step right up to your next big adventure. And thanks again for listening to the Skol Hop. Skol.